Okay, let's get into this. There's this really powerful question right in the source material we're looking at today. If protecting people costs too much, would you still do it?
Wow. Yeah, that definitely hits hard. And it's not just theoretical, is it? It's playing out right now in Colorado.
Exactly. Colorado, you think, mountains, outdoors, but now it's this epicenter for a huge debate about ride sharing, Uber, Lyft.
And it could really change how those companies work everywhere, not just there, and, how you get around.
So the core issue is this piece of legislation, Colorado House Bill 1129. On the surface, it sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it wants rideshare companies to report assaults, basically, and to
Yeah.
ban drivers who have, violent or sexual offense records.
Seems like basic common sense, right? Stuff you'd assume they're already doing.
You would think. But here's the twist. Uber and Lyft, they are fighting this hard.
Like, really hard. To the point where they're actually suggesting they might just pack up and leave Colorado.
Which immediately makes you go, wait, what? Why such strong opposition to something that sounds like basic safety?
So that's our mission for this deep dive, really. To unpack what this bill actually means for rider safety, for the future of Uber and Lyft in Colorado, maybe even beyond.
And sort of wrestle with that balance between keeping people safe and, well, the convenience we've all gotten used to, using the source material we have.
Okay, so let's break down the bill itself, House Bill 1129. What are the key requirements here?
Well, like you mentioned, there are sort of two main pillars. First, they want mandatory annual reporting of safety data, transparency, basically.
Right, how many incidents are actually happening on these platforms? Let's get the numbers out there.
Exactly. And the second part, which seems to be the real sticking point, is requiring these companies to check for serious criminal history.
The background checks. But the key is when they have to do it, right?
Precisely. The bill says before a driver starts giving rides, not after they've already been on the road, before they even accept that first request.
That sounds significant.
Yeah.
So why the pushback from Uber and Lyft? What are their specific concerns?
Well, our source material quotes Jen Hensley. She's Lyft's VP of Government Relations, and she says this bill, quote, fundamentally alters how ride sharing works.
Fundamentally alters it. Okay, how? What do they predict will happen if this passes?
They're painting a pretty grim picture, honestly. They're talking price surges, big ones, because of the added costs, they say.
Okay, higher prices. What else?
Driver shortages. They argue these checks, maybe the reporting too, will make it harder to get drivers signed up quickly or maybe kick existing ones off.
Fewer drivers means longer waits, potentially.
Potentially. And they even suggest they might have to pull out of some cities altogether, maybe the smaller markets where it's harder to operate anyway.
So higher prices, fewer drivers, maybe no service in some places. That's quite the list of consequences they're predicting.
It is. And, from their perspective, their whole model is built on scale, flexibility, having lots of drivers available almost instantly.
Yeah, that ease of getting a ride quickly is kind of their whole selling point.
Right. So anything that adds friction or cost to onboarding drivers or managing them, they see it as a direct threat to that core model. Profitability, scalability.
Okay, so that's the company's perspective.
Yeah.
But then there's the other side, the plot twist, as the source puts it. Why are Colorado lawmakers digging in their heels on this?
Yeah, they're not backing down. And a huge part of it seems to be the human element. They've heard directly from people, especially women, who've had terrible experiences.
Assaults, harassment during rides.
Exactly. Survivors shared their stories with the legislature. And their message is pretty clear. Accountability matters. Safety has to come first.
Those personal stories must be incredibly powerful in a legislative setting. Hard to ignore.
Absolutely. It shifts the focus from, operational hurdles and costs to the fundamental safety of the people using the service. It puts immense pressure on the lawmakers.
And it's not like Uber hasn't clashed with cities over rules before, right? The source brings up Austin, Texas.
Oh, yeah. 2016, that was a big one. It was over fingerprinting for background checks, I think.
And Uber and Lyft, too, actually shut down service there. They just left.
They did, caused a huge uproar. Eventually, the state stepped in, loosened the rules, and they came back.
So when they threaten to leave Colorado now, there's a history there. It's not necessarily an empty threat.
Definitely not empty. It shows they're willing to use service withdrawal as a tactic. But, the climate might be different now. The focus on safety feels more intense, maybe.
Perhaps. It really brings us back to that core question, doesn't it? Safety versus convenience at scale.
What matters more? And Representative Stephanie Vigil in Colorado, she put it very bluntly. Our source quotes her saying, "No company should get a free pass when it comes to people's safety."
That really cuts through the noise, doesn't it?
Hmm.
A direct challenge to the idea that a business model should somehow exempt a company from basic safety obligations.
It frames it as a fundamental responsibility, not just a business calculation. Protection isn't just an optional extra if it fits the budget.
And this isn't just a Colorado bubble, is it? The source mentions other states are watching closely.
Oh, absolutely. California, New York, Illinois,
Hmm.
big states with major rideshare markets, they're all paying attention.
So if Colorado passes this, and if Uber or Lyft do leave, that could send ripples everywhere.
Huge ripples. It could embolden other states thinking about similar regulations, or conversely, if the companies went out, it might discourage other states. It's a real test
It
case.
sets a precedent, one way or the other.
Definitely. For how these giant platforms are regulated, how much accountability they face for what happens during the service they provide.
So this whole thing raises different questions depending on who you are, right? If you're listening and you use these apps regularly,
You might start wondering, okay, how safe is my next ride? A little more pointedly, perhaps.
and if you're a driver or thinking about it,
You might be worried. What if these stricter checks mean I can't drive? What if something from years ago comes up? It impacts livelihoods, too.
and then there's the bigger picture for, the next generation. Entrepreneurs, policymakers.
Yeah, the people designing the next big thing. How do you build these amazing, innovative systems, but bake in safety from the start?
How do you protect people without, completely crushing the innovation or the convenience factor? That's a tough needle to thread.
It really is. And the source material kind of lands on this point towards the end. It's just this isn't just about balance sheets or logistics. Fundamentally, it's about power.
Power. Who has it? The tech giants. The regulators. The public.
Who has to give some up? And what happens when profit, or maybe just the way things have always been done by these companies, bumps up against basic principles like keeping people safe?
Yeah, this conflict between, profit and principle seems to be at the heart of it.
It's this ongoing negotiation, isn't it, between these incredibly powerful tech companies that are now just part of our lives.
Uh-huh. And the government's trying to figure out how to regulate them.
And us, the public, saying, okay, what do we actually expect from these services we rely on?
So wrapping this up, we've got this major standoff in Colorado. A proposed law aimed at making rideshares safer through more reporting and better background checks.
Check. And Uber and Lyft pushing back hard, threatening to leave, citing costs and operational changes.
Which forces this really uncomfortable question. Safety first or convenience and cost?
And everyone's watching because the outcome could seriously influence how other places handle this.
Right. It really leaves you thinking as these services become more and more, normal, woven into everything we do.
How do we as a society make sure they're safe? How do we demand accountability without totally stifling the innovation that brought us these things in the first place?
It feels like this Colorado situation, it's not a one-off, it's kind of the new normal, this constant tension we need to figure out.
Yeah, finding that balance between progress and protection, that's the ongoing challenge, isn't it?